Recently, The Atlantic reported that many university professors have come to a general consensus that students of even the most elite colleges are simply not prepared to read books fully. They later add that professors realized it wasn't that the students didn't know how to fully read a book, but that many high schools have simply stopped asking them to do so. Let's see what Mrs. Sharitz, one of the librarians here at Marquette, has to say about it.
I think that there is accuracy if they're looking at national data. I do believe that there has been a decline in student reading since the pandemic, as well as reading of people of all ages. I think that Marquette still tries to provide challenging courses. AP Lit and AP Lang, as well as the regular language arts classes, are still having whole class novels read. So I wouldn't say that any of our Marquette students are not being assigned the reading, so hopefully they're completing it in order to be ready for college. Circulation here for this first quarter has improved over last year, so we know that more books are circulating. Usually when students aren't reading, they just keep the same book. So the fact that more books are circulating and getting checked out, we do feel like students are reading more.
The new cell phone policy introduced here at Marquette works to reduce cell phone usage during classes. Let's hear how Mrs. Sharitz thinks it's impacted reading.
I do feel like, again, maybe since the pandemic, interest has strayed a little bit. I think, though, that this year with changes to the cell phone policy, I'm overwhelmingly hearing teachers say that they're seeing more students reading in the classrooms. That's kind of a related benefit, that because students can't just hop onto a device, they're picking up books. So I'm really happy to see, I feel like more of our students are reading this year, whereas I know that devices like cell phones are often used as a distraction when students are stressed or anxious, and I feel like easing out of the pandemic, they kind of became a crutch, and those were used more than using reading as a way to decompress and de-stress. We have tons of students who check out books very regularly, some students in here every single day. I do think that, reading stamina has to be built. So if a student doesn't have a habit of reading, they might sit down and start to read and feel like they're getting distracted in just a few minutes. But if they stick with it, sometimes as easy as like setting a timer to try to give the book your undivided attention, you can build reading stamina, and that's going to be really beneficial for college. I can say I also teach the ACT reading prep course, and in that, when we're talking about the importance of reading, I also mentioned to students that in a study that was done before the pandemic, so numbers may have changed, they found that the average college student is assigned between 200 and 600 pages of reading per week. So I often talk about how important it is to have a habit of reading just to be prepared for college. And then that article is emphasizing how often it needs to be complex texts that you're reading from start to finish. So we hope students know that reading books is beneficial in a lot of ways, both for our mental health and for our academics beyond high school.
With Marquette's push for literacy this year and the increased volume of students checking out books from the library, I decided to ask a couple of students what the most recent book they fully finished was, and why they decided to stick with it until its completion.
So the latest book I read was The Great Gatsby. I had to read it for AP Lit, so that was one of the main reasons why I had to finish it. But overall, yeah, I did think it was a pretty good book, pretty deep. Honestly speaking, even if I didn't have AP Lit, I would have wanted to finish it either way. Yeah, I would consider myself somebody who reads often. I usually check out like a book or something, like online at least, from the library, because I haven't been able to go in person.
It would be Sunrise, the third part to the Ashfall trilogy. I like the way that the author wrote the words out, how I could read them. It was pretty easy to understand and visualize. I also like how it was optimistic realism, so it was real, but it was also optimistic. I like that. I'm getting more into reading now than I was before. I used to love reading when I was a little kid, and then I stopped and didn't like it, and now I'm getting back into it. Just moving around a lot. I never really found books that I liked. I read the Bible, but other than the Bible, I didn't really read much.
The students interviewed were Skanda Kurakanda, a junior, and Dimitri Kabel, also a junior. This was Vihaan Madhavan with MHS News, signing off.